Good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome to another episode of Why Does Facebook Keep Changing How the Layout Is? I'm not sure. Anyways, welcome to Chapter and Verse. And regardless of the fact that Facebook decides to keep changing things on me and keep changing how it looks, uh, I am still the same. Don't look that much different than I normally do. Anyways, Craig McKibben here, which, if you're on Facebook, you probably know that already because you're on my Facebook page. But if you are on YouTube, then this is who I am. And as always, doesn't matter whether it's YouTube or Facebook, I just want to encourage you to say hi in the comment section. It lets me know that I am not alone and that this is actually going somewhere out there. And my goodness, I just wish that they would just stop messing with the layout because then I don't know where I'm supposed to look or anything like that. But I'm just going to see. Look at that. I have to press a whole bunch of buttons just to see that JB said hi in the comment section. Morning, Jeff. It's good to see you, or at least your name, but know that you're seeing me. Yeah, you figured it out. Anyways, but yes, I want to welcome you all, and I want to call it a pseudo apology. So just be aware right now that this is as much of an apology as it can be. But yes, I do want to apologize for the fact that I wasn't on last week. It's just I'm not in control of my life as much as I used to be. And so sometimes there are things that I need to be responsible for, and they just interfere because one of my responsibilities is national. So it doesn't matter whether I am in BC or not. There are things that happen across the country. And so I have to work with those time zones. Anyways, yes, but I want to say hi to everybody and top of the morning to you. This is one of my favorite mugs. I've given up. I think it was what I was on 104 or something like that. Mugs, different mugs, but yeah, I just grab a mug. But this is still one of my favorites. So thank you, JB, for your support there. And good morning, Lena. It's good having you with us as well. Also, I want to say that it's we're coming into the home stretch of sorts with Axe, and been asking myself questions about like what to do, how to continue this. Does it continue? Like I believe in this thing called planned obsolescence, which means that everything that has a beginning does have an end, and so it allows us to make that sort of thanks, Justin. I just saw your comment there about responsibility, but yeah, the like what do I do? I've always wanted to do Exodus. I wanted to do First Samuel. I wanted to have really a overarching understanding of the Bible. And so I may put a poll out there to see if people have some ideas as to what to do, or maybe this is just run its course. I'm not sure. We're well over 100,000 views of this, well over, and that's just the Facebook. That's not even YouTube. Which I want to ask you to do me a favor. We're gonna jump in here because I know I'm running late, but which is a shocker, I know, to all of you. But if you could do me a favor, I'm going to put the link of our YouTube channel on there. If you could do me a favor and just maybe just subscribe to that channel, as well as kind of like go through the list of the playlist of the ones that we've done and just kind of like the ones that you like. You don't have to, go through it all, but that's going to make YouTube put our stuff out there more and says, oh, well, people are liking this. And so that's one of the reasons why I would love your help with that. But I'll put that in the comment section, the playlist there. If you could just come back to the comment section or just search it. I think I'm the McKibber. I'm not really sure, actually. I could probably look up right now and see who I am on that channel here. And this is what happens when it goes live. Like, you start seeing these things. Meanwhile, I've just said, you know what? I want to make things go smoothly. You know what? I'll have to put the thing in there later. But as to what my name is, the McKibber or McKibber, something like that. Okay, let's jump into this because we got stuff to talk about today, and this is an interesting topic. Calling it the invisible balcony, and one of the things that I've wanted to do is find ask God to show me what we skip over, what we miss. Because we could go through Acts and it's like, I've heard all that stuff. But there's so many things in there in the book of Acts that just are nuggets that we would miss out if we didn't really spend the time to look at it. So we're going to just pray, and then we're going to start here. We're ending chapter 22 here in a moment, and let's move on. So God, I just want to thank you that we can be together in many forms. Lord, you are not only the same God yesterday, today, and forever. God, you are in yesterday. You are in the moment right now, and you are waiting for us in the future. So, Lord, I just ask that in this moment that you've been waiting for us to arrive to, I pray that you would just meet with us and share with our hearts today the things that happened so many years ago, but still impact our lives today. We ask this, Jesus, in your name. Amen. All right. I also want to give a shout out to ink malfunctions, pen malfunction. My pen exploded like just right before this started, so I had to like try and clean up here. So, anyways, I guess I should have wore blue or something if I was gonna to move on. Okay, let's go on here. I'm gonna just read a couple of verses and kind of piece it together, starting in verse 24 of chapter 22. And then we're just going to finish up 22 and jump into 23. So it says that the commander ordered him to be brought, meaning Paul, ordered him to be brought into the barracks, directing that he be interrogated with the scourge to discover the reason why they were shouting against him like this. As they stretched him out for the lash, Paul said to the centurion standing by, "Is it legal for you to scourge a man who is a Roman citizen and is uncondemned?" And you have to listen to the last episode when we talked about this whole scary thing. So those who were about to examine him withdrew from him immediately. The commander too was alarmed when he realized Paul was a Roman citizen, and he had bound him because of ixnay on the Almding. I don't know Pig Latin, but yes, like that's bad. Okay. All right. Let's go into verse 30. Here we go. Okay. The next day, since he wanted to find out exactly why Paul was being accused by the Jews, he released him and instructed the chief priests and all the Sanhedrin to convene. Now, listen to this. This is the beautiful thing of what I see in God's word. It says, he brought Paul down and placed him before them. Now, you're going to find something out. He did not Uber Paul over there, okay? But he stuck around. Important to notice this. But he stuck around for what's about to take place. Okay, there was this, did some research, this Roman tribune called Lysias. They wanted to know why Paul was being persecuted so much, and it was too much of an issue. So something had to be up here. So they brought him to the Sanhedrin, and that brings us now to chapter 23, baby. Okay, look at that. We're like just 5 chapters away from the end. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's jump into this. Verse 1 says, Paul looked straight at the Sanhedrin, okay, and said, "Brothers, I have lived my life before God in all good conscience to this day." The high priest, catch this, Ananias, ordered those who were standing next to him to strike him on the mouth, which you're going to notice here that Luke, who wrote the gospel, the historical account of Jesus, the gospel according to Luke, I'm sure that Luke is going, wait a minute, I think I've heard about this stuff happening before. You're going to see some similarities in this sort of altercation between Paul and Jesus, and for good reason. Okay, Luke is trying to set a stage that where Jesus said that, if you are hated, really they hate me. right? This persecution is really about their relationship to Jesus. Okay. So we see the similarity here. Just listen as we go through this. You're going to go, oh man, there's a few things. Even the scourging that was going to take place again. Okay. Then Paul said to him, okay, meaning Ananias, catch this, God is going to strike you, you whitewashed wall. Ooh, you and your bad language, right? You whitewashed wall, okay? You are sitting there judging me according to the law, and yet in violation of the law, you are ordering me to be struck. He's calling Ananias out, okay? Well, sorry. He's calling this person out, which is important to note here, that at this point, Paul doesn't know who Ananias is. But he does call him this whitewashed wall, which is something that Jesus referred to, and we hear it often. It was a Jewish idiom. It was something that they did. For the cemetery area, they would put this white paint sort of thing over the rock to give it this look of prettiness, I guess, or whatever. But inside, obviously the body's decaying, and that's kind of this idea of what this whitewashed wall means, is that you are on the outside looking all nice, but on the inside you're corrupt, you're evil. That's the reference that's being used there. Okay. And we also see this as something that Jesus said in Matthew chapter 23 verse 27, calling the religious people whitewashed sepulchres. Okay. Now, I want to point something out here. He said, God is going to strike you, you whitewashed wall. Now, that's fine and all, I guess. I'm not going to say it's great, but that's what Paul says. But does anybody know what happened to Ananias? Did anybody do research? Oh, yes. Fancy. Thank you for asking that question. I did a bit of research on this Ananias person here. So this is from like Jewish historians, Roman historians as well. So like this is verified. What I'm about to tell you, it's not fact checked by something I saw on Facebook. No offense, because I guess I'm on Facebook right now. But anyways, so Ananias was the high priest. He was appointed high priest from 47 to 59 Christian era, like AD is another way of saying it. But he was appointed by Herod of Chalcis. Okay, he was appointed by Herod. We hear this word Herod as being ones that are these Roman place card Jews, or I guess I should say Jewish place card Romans, and kind of maybe, I'm not sure which way it is, except for the fact that they're Jews, and they are put in by the Roman government to kind of keep things going along. He was King Agrippa's brother. Okay, that's who we have here. So now Herod is putting in Ananias in this place. Ananias was known for his arrogance. He was known for being pro-Roman. Okay, he was supporting Roman. But here's something that's interesting. He was known for being extremely cruel to Jews that opposed Rome. So his cruelty was actually something he was renowned for by Roman historians like Josephus and some of these other, right? He talked about this. And during the Jewish revolt against Rome, which was 66 to 70-ish there, Ananias, he was assassinated. Okay, well, I guess it would be in 59, right? Because he was assassinated by, this is important, Jewish zealots, the Sicarii. Okay, these Jewish zealots. Now, you're noticing that zealots actually comes up a number of times when we're talking in these last few weeks, and it's going to matter again today. So here, history accounts that Ananias was hiding in the temple courts in an aqueduct, and they found him there, and he didn't last. Okay, so here, even though Paul says, Paul says, he says, God is going to strike you, he did. Okay, verse 4. Those standing nearby said, do you dare revile God's high priest? Ooh, guess I didn't know my audience. I did not know, brothers, that he was the high priest, replied Paul. For it is written, you must not speak evil of a ruler of your people. Okay, he's referring to something that's in Exodus chapter 22. Is one of the laws that the Lord puts out there. It says you must not blaspheme God or curse a leader among your people. So Paul is legitimately saying, oh, you know what? I crossed the line. Okay, but God still had, it seems like, it out for Ananias later on. But Paul tries to, put it in reverse for a little bit, but that doesn't happen. Okay. Anyways, when Paul realized that one part of them were Sadducees and the other part were Pharisees, okay, he cried out in the Sanhedrin, brothers, I am a Pharisee, a son of Pharisees. Like, I've got pedigree. I've got this lineage of Pharisees here. Am I being judged because of the hope of the resurrection of the dead? Okay. Okay. So just let me put this into perspective here. It would be similar to, I guess, like maybe standing before the um, uh, U.S. Congress or something, and as you stand up there, you're wearing a "Make America Great Again" hat or something like that. You're like stirring the pot, right? You're gonna like get things going, right? So he says, like, the hope of the resurrection of the dead. Why do I say this? Because catch this. It says, when he said this, a dispute broke out between the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and the assembly was divided. For the Sadducees say there's no resurrection. Okay? No, we're not going to make America great again. And we're going to make America great again. Like, boom, things explode, right? So there's no resurrection, and neither angel nor spirit, but the Pharisees affirm them all. So Paul's no dummy. Like, he gets this place stirred up. It was a very strategic move on Paul's part to bring division. I guess it's not really the best word I want to use here, but bring up the tension away from himself, and they're trying to gang up on him, and he actually turns them onto each other. It actually, the word is, it divided the council. Okay, so that Greek word genetai stasis. Okay, there arose a dissension. Okay, it's an uproar. It's not like I'm upset about that. No, it turned into a big, full blown sort of yelling match and all that. Well, let's keep reading and you'll see what I'm talking about. Verse 9 says this: the shouting grew loud, and some of the scribes of the Pharisees' party, okay, got up and argued vehemently, we find nothing evil in this man. So I'm not really sure if Paul's intention was to try and get one party, meaning the Pharisees, to stand up for him just because he's a Pharisee. Wouldn't surprise me if I get to heaven and Paul says, yeah, that's what I was thinking of doing. But either way, now you've got those who were ready to come against Paul. Now they're standing up for him. Okay. What if a spirit or an angel has spoken to him? When the dispute became violent, my goodness, like we're seeing robes pulled over heads, like, and we're seeing like uppercuts there, and people are dropping their per gloves. I don't know what, like, I'm trying to make it hockey-ish, but it says that when the dispute became violent, remember who is in the balcony? The commander feared that Paul might be torn apart by them, and ordered the troops to go down, take him away from them, and bring him into the barracks. The commander was still there, all for all of that. Okay? Now you may go, thanks. It's going to matter. It's going to matter in a bit here. Okay. The following night, the Lord stood by him and said, have courage. For as you have testified about me in Jerusalem, so it is necessary for you to testify in Rome. Okay? I want you to catch this. we've been going through the last few episodes and looking at these sessions about the fact that time after time, people were saying to Paul, don't go to Jerusalem, because if you go to Jerusalem, it's not going to end well. Paul kept balking at it and kept stopping it and saying, no, that's fine. I'm going to keep going. And no matter what they said, even we saw just a couple of episodes ago where people interpreted what they experienced from the Holy Spirit as being the Spirit telling them to tell Paul, don't go to Jerusalem. Yet Paul kept going. And now, in this moment, Paul has God himself, it says, that the Lord stood by him and said, have courage, for you have testified about me in Jerusalem, so it is necessary for you to testify in Rome. So at the end of the day, Paul definitely was listening to what God wanted to do. It was not the Spirit of God that said, don't go to Jerusalem. No, we see that God was drawing Paul to be obedient all the way to Jerusalem, knowing that it is now going to launch towards Rome. So we're going to see some things happen in the next few episodes that maybe go, well, had Paul done this, maybe that wouldn't happen. But we see that Jesus was instructing Paul to go testify about the Lord in Rome. And I just want to show that as an encouragement to you, that sometimes the whole world could be saying, Craig, or Bob, or Sally, or I'm looking at Jennifer, these moments, Justin, JB, you know what? God wouldn't tell you to do that, or you shouldn't be doing this, or you don't. At the end of the day, you have to be obedient to what you believe God is calling you to do. You just have to do that. Even though it may seem strange, it may seem weird, and there are people in my life that are going, Craig, why would you do that? Why would you, are you serious? Why would you do that? I even had a conversation with somebody yesterday about decisions that we've made in the last 6 months or so, and just about the fact that I look back on it now and I'm thankful that I did what I did, because I'm not sure I would have been as courageous to do it, under different circumstances. But God lined it up the way he did so that we would be obedient to what he was calling us. We believe God was calling us to do. And that's why I like that when Jesus, well, the Lord, it says the Lord, but when we take it as a theophany, because that's who that's who Paul refers to Jesus. He says Lord, curious. Okay. So we see here that he says, take courage, from tharse. It's something that a word that Jesus used often to talk about how to deal with fear. When you're facing fear, take courage. It's not have courage. It's not find courage. It's take courage. It is like even in John 16, I think it was, where he says, in this world you have many trials. I think it's verse 20 or verse 33. In this world you have many trials, but take heart. Okay, take courage. I love the fact that God, who is the abundance, that's not even the right word, the infinite abundance of courage, the infinite abundance of strength, the infinite abundance of hope, the infinite abundance of encouragement, the infinite abundance of mercy and love, that he says, take it from me. Just take it from me. Too many times we are trying to fabricate something that we don't have in our tanks, that we don't have in our reserves. And Jesus says to Paul in this moment, that I'm sure was not fun at all, says, take courage. Okay, I love that. Okay, let's keep going. Verse 12 says this. When it was morning, the Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves under oath. This is what I love about this. I hope you've been staying with me for the last few episodes, because there's so much richness to God's word here. It says that the Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves under a curse to not eat or drink until they had killed Paul. Spoiler alert, they don't. So I'm not sure what ended up happening to these people. But here I find it interesting. You have Christians who have decided to purify themselves, taking this oath of purification before God, but that they're doing that to be able to share the message of hope of Jesus with the Jews. Yet now you've got these pious Jews about to defile themselves and make themselves unclean because they are going to murder somebody. They're going to defile themselves, and they think that this is right, which is interesting because it's this whole idea of a whitewashed sepulcher. On the outside, oh, it's all good and all that. On the inside, not so much. Okay. The other thing that is interesting that I just want to point out is the word there for that oath-bound conspiracy. The word actually in the Greek is anathemizo. It means to curse yourself if the vow isn't fulfilled. So it's basically saying, cursed be me if blank, 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 blank. Okay. That's how extreme that they get into this moment, which I'll just pause because I have something to say about that in a moment here. So verse 13 says, there were more than 40 who had formed this plot, which I found interesting. It's about 10 times more than the group that Paul had. But you've got like these 40 people that are all set out on killing Paul. Okay. These men went to the chief priests and elders and said, we have bound ourselves. I'm trying to come up with a half decent accent for this because it's got to be good. It says, we have bound ourselves under a solemn curse that we won't eat anything until we have killed Paul. Right? Tradition. Okay, right? So all I want to say about that is that we need to seek zealousness, yes, but avoid overzealousness, okay? Because the needle can tip over at that moment, okay? Let's read on, and hopefully I can get done this in 4 minutes. So now you, along with the Sanhedrin, make a request to the commander that he bring him down to you. Oh, sorry, I have to keep that accent. So now you, along with the Sanhedrin, make a request to the commander that he bring him down to you as if you were going to investigate his case more thoroughly. But before he gets near, we are ready to kill him. Kill him, okay? But the son of Paul's sister, well, right place, right time. The son of Paul's sister, his nephew, hearing about this ambush, came and entered the barracks and reported it to Paul, okay? Which I think is awesome. Sometimes you go like, I don't know why God put me here. It could be just to overhear something to keep things moving along. I just love that part of the story. I'm not going to really go too far on it, but it's really cool. Verse 13 says that Paul called one of the centurions and said, take this young man to the commander because he has something to report to him. Okay. Which I also want to say is really cool that we're going to find out that the centurion does it. So there has to be some level of respect because if they just thought Paul was off his rocker, they'd be like, yeah. Thanks for coming out. Right. But Paul has got influence enough that they're listening to him. Okay, verse 18 says, so he took him, brought him to the commander, and said, the prisoner Paul called me and asked me to bring this young man to you because he has something to tell you. So the commander, check this out, took him by the hand, led him aside, and inquired privately, what is it that you have to report to me? Obviously, this commander knows something is not good here, that God elevates Paul, even in this horrible situation, to a place where he is brought favor, with even people like Joseph, when we see the same sort of thing happening in his life. Okay, let's keep going. So this nephew says, the Jews, he said, have agreed to ask you to bring Paul down to the Sanhedrin tomorrow, as though they are going to hold a somewhat more careful inquiry about him. But don't let them persuade you, because there are more than 40 of them lying in ambush, men who have bound themselves under a curse not to eat or drink until they have killed him. Now they are ready, waiting for your consent." So the commander dismissed the young man and instructed him, "Don't tell anyone that you have informed me about this." I want to just say, as we're wrapping this up, that we see that there's this introduction for this plot to kill Paul. Okay. It's also foreshadowing, because we're only 5 chapters away from the end of Acts as it's written, but we're going to come to find out that Acts really doesn't end. That Luke is setting the stage. There's this uptick in the persecution of what is happening in the church, and we're going to see that happen. And so that's something that he is getting at with this. The other thing that I want to point here is that I love the fact that Paul trusted God in the midst of the chaos. It didn't matter. He still trusted God no matter what was going on. Okay, well, next week, anyways, I want to just let you know that the commander, I'm just going to say, he takes his job really, really seriously, okay? And we're going to see that he does some things that are pretty impressive. But what I want to point out here about the invisible balcony is that let us never forget the fact that there are people that are always watching. And I look at this, and I wish that we would be able to take a note of this session and just say, what are we doing in our churches in stirring the pot all the time, getting upset with different beliefs or different thoughts about different things? And meanwhile, there's people in the balcony going like, what sort of crazy is this? We need to think the fact that there are people in the balcony in our lives that are watching us. How are we conducting ourselves? Good question. Maybe throw your thoughts in the comment section. As I asked you at the beginning, please help me out. I'm going to put in the comment section the playlist for our YouTube videos. This gets uploaded tomorrow. And by liking the ones that you liked, as well as subscribing to the channel, it's going to uptick the amount of people that are watching it. We have well over 100,000 people, or 100,000 views of this on Facebook, but we want to really build things up in YouTube world-verse anyways. And I'll talk more next week and the weeks to come about what's going to happen after Acts sessions are done. Okay, anyways, as always, I love to end with some sort of thought or wisdom, and so I just found it really ironic. Maybe you can agree with this. Isn't it ironic that the word Q is simply the letter Q with a whole bunch of silent letters waiting up in line? Anyways, until next time, God bless you. Go in peace. Look around in the balcony. There's going to be people in there.